Previously on A Very Odd Caster.
Here's one, comes from Berlin. German surgeon fired after getting hospital cleaner to assist with amputation. A surgeon in a German hospital flagged down a hospital cleaner, mopping the floor there, and said, "Hey man, want to give me a hand?" I don't know why I burst into a British accent there. It would be more like, "Excuse me, sir. Would you like to give me a hand?" "Hey man, come on over here, man. I'm sawing off this guy's toe. Want to help me? Here, hold his toe right there. Yeah. Can you hold the clip there? Yeah. So the patient received a local anesthetic, watched and listened as the doctor asked a nearby cleaner to hold the man's leg and pass him surgical instruments. Scalpel? Scalpel. Scissors? Scissors. Mop and glow? Mop and glow. 1, 2, 3, 4.
This episode of A Very Odd Caster is brought to you from the makers of Tito's handmade vodka. Sure, it's not as good as two Hollywood hunks riding around the Mexican desert on motorcycles hawking tequila, but it's still pretty damn tasty. A Very Odd Caster is also brought to you by Max Headroom, because in this episode, you're not likely to see much of it. And welcome to another season of A Very Odd Caster. Summer is over and the fall season is underway, and we're going to start by taking a look back at where we left off as summer kicked off. We're going to continue that look back right now.
So I made it all the way over here to Ocean City, Maryland. But when I got here, I discovered that it was senior week. I mean, I figured I was going to get here and there was going to be these tottering folks out there playing shuffleboard, going to bed at 8 o'clock, you know. I was strategically thinking last night when I arrived that I'm going to wait till about 8 o'clock to go to dinner, because that's when all these seniors are going to bed. "I think it's time to go to bed now, Louise, don't you?" "Yes, I think so, Claude." Claude. So I went out at about 8 o'clock expecting all the old fogies, the seniors, to be shuffling on home to bed, putting their teeth in the glass and whatnot. You know, not like I have to do that. But when I got to the restaurant, lo and behold, there was a line of teenagers waiting to get in the restaurant that I wanted to get in. I'm like, what? Well, come to find, it is senior week indeed here in Ocean City, but they're not referring to seniors as in, you know, over 65. They're talking about recent high school graduates. You know, here I thought I was going to be having to put up with the greatest hits of Andy Williams all week, you know? Moon River, wider than a mile. That guy's wider than a mile, actually. Some guy on a bike. But no, I'm not going to have to put up with Andy Williams all week, I'm going to have to put up with Juice World. Yo, 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 you're a ho, ho, ho. But actually, I think this is karma when it comes right down to it, right? Because here I had this attitude like, I realize I'm getting up there in age, but I don't want to mingle with these old farts. And what happens? Hell, I'm like 40 plus years older than these kids that just got out of high school. And they're looking at me like, you need a hand crossing the street, sir? I'm like, fuck you. This one took place in North Dakota. Man indicted in theft of Wizard of Oz ruby slippers worn by Judy Garland. There's no place like jail. There's no place like jail. There's no place like jail. A driver who was pulled over for speeding tried to switch places with his dog to avoid arrest for a DUI. The man said he was not behind the wheel and clearly showed signs of being drunk, police said. He ran from the officer when asked how much he had had to drink and was caught within about 20 yards and taken down to the slammer. The dog, meanwhile, simply said, "Ruh-roh, Raggy." Authorities in a central New Jersey town say they are no longer noodling over a mystery of how hundreds of pounds of pasta were dumped near a stream. Old Bridge Mayor Owen Henry said Friday that the pasta, which included spaghetti and macaroni, was cleaned up mysteriously last week before public works crews had a chance to go there and clean up the mess. And the Old Bridge mayor offered a $10,000 reward for the citizen who had cleaned up the pasta. And after a couple of days, former Governor Chris Christie stepped forward to claim the prize. But apparently, this government official in India was suspended from his job after he ordered a water reservoir to be drained so he could retrieve his smartphone, which he had dropped while taking a selfie. Food Inspector Rajesh Vishwash, that's his name, that's what it says, Vishwash. So Vishwash, who is a little vishy-vashy, he first asked local divers to jump into the reservoir to find the phone, claiming it contained sensitive government data. Yeah, it was probably dick pics. Yo, I'm sending this to my Bollywood star. Ooh, clicky, clicky. A Southern Illinois man has been charged with theft for allegedly stealing a backhoe to drive about 10 miles to an airport to catch a flight. This damn Uber. They're late. What the heck's going on? They keep canceling me. Excuse me, Farmer Brown, do you mind if I borrow your backhoe?
I bet you missed us. Us, it's just me, all right? You noticed that those clips that wrapped up the spring season of this year were taken at the beach at Ocean City, Maryland. The reason I was over there was due to the fact that Castor's Pub was getting renovated. And we had to close down for a few weeks. So I just headed over to the beach and taped a couple of episodes over there. And now we're back in Castor's Pub. And can't you tell the renovations? I mean, wasn't it noticeable? I mean, here, look at it before. See? All right, well, maybe this picture will show it better. Okay, how about this picture? All right, so we basically did nothing to the bar. But why would you need to? We've got everything we need already right here on display here at Castor's Pub. However, I will say that I did undertake part of the renovation myself. See, the recording studio that is adjoined to the pub, because where else would someone put a recording studio than adjacent to a noisy pub? So the recording studio was an unfinished room. Basically, it was sort of part recording studio, part storage closet, if you will. And the main thing is there was no ceiling, all right? So for years, I was saying, gotta put in a ceiling, gotta put in a ceiling. So finally this summer, I did it, and we documented some of this project in a segment I like to call DIY, dumb, idiotic, and useless. It's close. And here's our first installment. Well, I'm the last person on the planet Earth that should be doing a do-it-yourself video. In fact, for me, DIY does not stand for do-it-yourself. It stands for dumb, idiotic, and useless. But nonetheless, sometimes we have to try things, right? Now, my father was an engineer, extremely handy. My brother, an engineer, extremely handy. My son is studying to be an engineer. I'm not going to go as far as to say he's extremely handy, but that gene bypassed me. Nonetheless, I try from time to time. So here we have it. We are here in my studio. Now this studio was built by primarily my dad. I helped him about 20 years ago. Let me give you a better view. So there's the door and there's the back wall. So the studio, as you might guess, is used for music and recording. Most sane people would use this workbench for a workbench. I use it for recording insane stuff. So anyhow, my father and I, help, I'm drowning. So my father and I worked on this about 20 years ago. And he put these walls up, built the frame, put the door in, and put the drywall up, and I painted it. Can't you tell? But he took one look at this beam, and he said, you know, I'll leave it to you to finish the ceiling. So right now you might be a little distracted because we've got actually a colony of jellyfish living right above us. That's what's hanging down here. No. I put insulation up and the tape is falling because it was a long time ago. It was probably a year ago. That's how fast I move on these home improvement projects. So anyhow, I've decided, finally, damn it, I'm going to put in a ceiling. But first, I have to deal with this beam. So yes, there you see it. This long, lovely beam from wall to wall. My father didn't want any part of it. And there I go again. Ah! And for 20 years, I didn't want any part of it either, but I decided I'm going to try. So in order to put a ceiling in, you have to work around this beam. And in order to work around this beam, you need a frame. So as you can see, I've already put in these things, but I'm going to talk a little bit about that journey. So it was not easy because, as you can see, what I was going for, or what I am going for, is framing it in like that, and then the drywall will go horizontally across the top there, and then underneath as well. However, it needs support, and that is what the problem was, because this beam is wacky. All right, so you can see I've put a wood plate. I'm going to have to bring you with me. So, let's break the frame doing a stupid video, shall we? So, the problem we had here with this beam is that it was very challenging. On top of the beam, there was an indentation of about a 1/2 inch. And that's why I put this wood plate. It's about a 1/2 inch thick. And I hammered it all the way down there, if you can see, and then all the way to the end, all the way down there. And that levels it off almost to the top of the beam. It actually overhangs a little bit, but I don't care about that. Really, the only problem is there's some of these, what do you call them? I mean, they're nails. They're like concrete nails that hook over the beam, and the plate actually puffs out a bit, so it's a little oblong. So that's one problem we have. The other problem we have is underneath the beam, there's a little space. So you can see, I can stick my finger up there. Ooh. So there's this space underneath the beam. And the problem is there's a little wave to the wall. All right. So at the end of the wall, down yonder in the corner, this was like 1.5 inch space from the beam to the wall behind the door there. And then it sort of narrows, and it keeps narrowing to the point where it was like 3/4, all the way to here. Then all of a sudden, the wave continues, and it gets even more narrow. And it's only like 1/2 inch up in this area for about this far. Then it starts expanding again in width. So I have different size plates underneath here. But first, let me tell you the story of the plates. So I mentioned to you what I did up above there, putting that top plate all along the top of the beam. And that was so I can hammer this vertical piece of the frame. Hello, there we go. Right there. So I needed something, it needed support, right? So I needed something to hammer this piece of wood, this vertical piece of wood, for support. And that's why I put the plate in. Now you would think that, oh, with this issue underneath, because you need this horizontal piece of wood also to go into something. So you would think I would do the same thing, which I eventually did. But no, I'm a slow learner. I didn't stop and think, hey, this worked pretty good up here. I think I'll do the same thing underneath. No, I tried to do something totally different. Silly me. So my brilliant idea, which did not work, was I was going to put these little blocks and slide them under there and screw them into the wall, right? And then I would attach this piece to the little piece there, and it would be like that. Well, all sorts of things went wrong. For starters, these little pieces, when I tried to screw these horizontal pieces into the end of this using little wood screws, it kept splitting the wood. I split like 3 or 4 of them in a row, and I said, screw it. This is not going to do it anymore. Other problem I had is there's like practically no space above this door. There's 1.5 inches from the beam to the top of the door. That ain't much, kids. So if there's 1.5 inches and you've got a 1/2 inch for drywall, right? That leaves you 1 inch to put some kind of a plate. So it was a challenge, a major challenge. But at any rate, as you can see, I was able to put this plate, of course it's in several sections, and before I hammered that in, and again I had to hammer it because the wood kept splitting. I didn't want to like ruin the wood, so I got kind of paranoid. I said, I'm hammering. So that's what's going on. There's nails in there. I wanted there to be screws, but they're nails. But before I could do that, I had to attach these horizontal strips into the plate. And then I hammered it in and I connected these two. So that is what I did. However, there's another problem. I suck at using a circular saw. I mean, you know, I'm no pro, all right? And so what you have is some uneven woodwork here, some uneven cuts, and it's posing problems, and I'm going to have to compensate for this. I will give you an example. Let's look closely at this one, shall we? Right there. You see that one? See this right here? So this is the vertical piece coming down. Here's the horizontal piece. They don't quite match, right? Because I didn't cut it right. And you know, the drywall has to go against that. And so there's going to be this little area. Fortunately, I have another plan. I'm going to get a little wood chip and probably glue it right here to make it even. And then when I get the drywall there, I'll just hammer it on and it'll secure the wood chip that way. So this one's a better example. Look at that sucker. Look at that. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to get a little wood chip, put it in there to make it match. Same thing down there and down there. Nice cutting, Tex. So yeah, you're looking at a total amateur here. But every now and then I like to try to do this. It reminds me of my dad, you know. And besides, back 20 years ago when he said, I'll let you handle the ceiling, he had a little twinkle in his eye, which meant, sucker. And yeah, I haven't wanted to mess with it. So there you kind of have it. Very much of a challenge back in the corners there. And I feel like it's going to be a big challenge putting the drywall up. Cutting it, it's got to be perfect. I'm going to have to do a much better job. Pay no mind to those jellyfish hanging from the ceiling. Just don't touch their tentacles because, you'll get blisters. Well, I can't wait for the next segment. Can you? I'd like to track our progress. Very exciting, putting in a new ceiling in the recording studio / storage closet / spider hangout. Now, this is the second year of A Very Odd Caster. And over the summer, did a lot of soul searching, a lot of reflection as to what this program should be. And I've come to some fairly startling conclusions. First of all, this is not a podcast. I know it's a very odd caster, and I call it an odd cast, and in a sense it is. But in studying the landscape, there's not too many places where you can find information on podcasts, is there? But most of the podcasts follow sort of a talk show format. It's sort of like radio interview, Rogan, of course, is the standard bearer, and he talks to these folks for like 3 or 4 hours. I like the Rogan program. I just don't have 3 or 4 hours every day to listen to it. So, in sort of reviewing the past year, I've accepted the fact that this is not a podcast. I don't have guests on here. Nobody wants to talk to me. What this is more of a show. It's still an odd cast, I guess, A very, very odd cast. So, in looking at the format, I wanted to do some tweaks. Now, as I pointed out, the last few episodes of the spring season and kicking off the summer were shot over in Ocean City, Maryland, at the beach. And I thought, I think we might do that from time to time, just wherever we're at, wherever I'm at. Me and my fictional friend over here. Hi, how are you doing? I'm doing good. Oh. So, look for more episodes to take place in remote locations. Second thing, last year we tried to do it weekly. We tried to crank out a new show every week. That got to be a pain in the ass, especially when you consider the fact that 2 people were tuning in. So I decided if I'm going to keep doing this, I'm going to do it whenever I damn feel like it. So that might mean more episodes at times. That'll certainly mean not every week. Now, as far as the format itself, I like to incorporate more music because that is a thing. Everybody likes music. Well, almost everybody likes music. And in my case, I actually play it. So we're going to do a little bit more analysis of music. So I mentioned that podcasts generally follow a very predictable format, which is you have a host or hosts. Maybe they're bantering with each other, or they have a guest on, or the single host has a guest on, a la Rogan. But that seems to be kind of the standard format. I'm not really interested in a talk show. However, I would not rule out the possibility of having the occasional guest on here. So we'll see. But again, the problem I have, there's still some construction debris here from all the renovation that went on here. Anyhow, but the problem is, of course, that nobody wants to be on the show. Okay, we are now underway in the football season. College football has been taken by storm by the Deion Sanders, Colorado Buffaloes stuff. And that's all you're going to hear about. And it's great that they've turned that program around. Sanders was never my cup of tea. Back when he played for Atlanta, and then Dallas, and then San Francisco, and then wherever else. He's a great player, great athlete, and his kid is obviously very good too. So I got nothing against Colorado, but I'm just not into the shtick, if you know what I mean. So college football is underway, and the NFL is underway, and I am playing fantasy football this year. And so, I'd like to share with you my team. It's in an 8-person league. I thought I had some pretty good draft picks, but my very first draft pick was Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs, who's always good for about 100 receptions and a bunch of touchdowns. And of course, the day after the draft, what happens? Kelce gets hurt and winds up missing the first game. So that sent me into an overthinking spiral, if you will. So the first thing I thought is, wow, there's still Mahomes, right? Mahomes is going to be dishing. I thought, well, who's replacing Kelce? And it was this guy named Noah Gray. I said, I'm going to take him. I think they're going to get it done. It's Thursday night football. It's the kickoff to the season. It's in Kansas City. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year. I mean, the table is set. This Gray guy is going to have a great game. Run. Detroit wins the game, for starters. Shuts down the Kansas City passing game. Well, there was that guy, number 19, who kept dropping passes. Second was my quarterback situation. My draft pick was Joe Burrow of Cincinnati, who I believe is definitely a top 5 quarterback, maybe a top 3 quarterback. However, 2 major factors. One, Burrow hurt his calf in preseason. I didn't play a snap. So his first action was the opener, which was, and this is the second reason, in Cleveland against my Browns. And the Browns have got Joe's number. And I was like, there's no way Burrow's going to light up the stat sheet. There's just no way. Browns have a brand new defense. And by the way, I picked the Browns defense as my defense. And it was not a bad move. They got Jim Schwartz as their defensive coordinator. They've got an attack-minded defense. A lot of their problems the last couple of years have been due to the former coach, who I won't mention his name, Joe Woods. But it was ridiculous. The breakdowns were just stuff you see in Pop Warner. So I said, Burrow's not going to do anything. So I benched Burrow. Smart move, right? Well, who's your backup quarterback? Brock Purdy was my backup quarterback, right? I like that guy. I think he's good. I think he's the real deal. And yet, I overthought it. I'm like, they're playing at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's always got a good defense. They're healthy. They're going to shut down Purdy. Purdy was out injured. A little bit of uncertainty with him. So I was like, I need another quarterback. So I benched Purdy too. That was a mistake because Purdy lit up the Steelers. So off the waiver wire, I pulled Dak Prescott from Dallas. I'm like, oh, he always fills the stat sheets. They're playing the Giants. He always plays good against the Giants. This is a good deal. Run. Prescott barely did better than Burrow. And while Purdy was lighting it up, I had Prescott. So that was a problem. And then my running backs were Josh Jacobs of the Raiders and Breece Hall of the Jets. But Hall was listed as questionable going into that Monday night game versus the Bills. And I said, I'm going to hold off, And then I decided, he's not going to do anything. They got Aaron Rodgers, and Rodgers is going to throw a bunch. So I benched Hall, and I pulled up. Who did I pull up? Oh, Williams from New Orleans. Claimed him off the waiver wire, pulled him up. He did nothing. What did Breece Hall do? First carry, 25 yards. Second carry, 83 yards. And by the way, Aaron Rodgers, Man, I feel bad. I like Aaron Rodgers. Quirky, eccentric dude and a great quarterback. And I hope that's not it for him. That injury was pretty sad after only 4 plays. But anyhow, I just got smoked. The only player who produced for me is Stephon Diggs on Buffalo. He had a big game against the Jets. But it wasn't a good first week. I got my ass kicked. Now, I mentioned that we're going to do more in the way of music this year on Very Oddcaster. This is probably straight up stuff. But each time I'm going to focus on what I'll call the Song of the Hour. And due to copyright restrictions, I'm going to focus on some originals here, including the closing theme song of A Very Oddcaster. You've heard snippets of it. Now you're going to hear the whole thing. It's called Jabberwocky Rap.
Jabberwocky, high-fisted combat, crawling in the trenches, how they hide from the wenches of Pendlebury. Do you know what I'm talking about? That's a fun thing. Got the Jabberwocky blue. I could whoop you Q-tips at the earlobe, pumpernickel, Hammond, and the 7-Eleven store in Bonneville. Do you know what I'm talking about? Aha, Yahtzee. Got the Jabberwocky blue. Looking boneyard, sturdy mystery, double art, now rigor mortis, man, found liturgic, who can't and count a coup. Do you know what I'm talking about? Hey kids, it's Central Time. Got the Jabberwocky blue. Decorate the open house and keep your hand outside the blouse of Puget Sound. Do you know what I'm talking about? Samuel Butler. Got the Jabberwocky blue. California hit bone, Yelpy on the car phone, hypocritic, simulcast, anorectic with a fat ass. Do you know what I'm talking about? Bourgeoisie. Got the Jabberwocky blue. Troubleshooting pumpkin seed, elephantitis, dressed in real Alaskan seals and chassis belts, ozone layers beginning to melt, fortune cookie. Do you know what I'm talking about? Turn down the heat.
So a bit of an interesting history on the Jabberwocky Rap. The original was written over 30 years ago, and it was called the Jabberwocky Blues. Basically, I was tinkling, while I tinkle. I was tinkling on the piano, tickling the ivories, and just playing a basic 12-bar blues thing. Boom, 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 boom. And I clicked on the record button and recorded it. And it was lying around. I said, I have to come up with some words to this at some point. So one night, I was at the time living in Atlanta, Georgia, and I came in, single guy at that time in my life. Came back home after a night out, a late night out. And I was feeling, shall we say, no pain. Okay, I was blasted out of my skull. And I'm messing around with my guitar and my stuff, and I stumbled upon the boogie woogie on the piano. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna do something, which is slur for, I think I'm going to write lyrics to this song. And so I'm thinking, I don't know what to write about. It's 2:30 in the morning. So I did this exercise, which was really fun. I pulled out a Webster's dictionary. Let's pretend this is a Webster's dictionary. It really isn't, but it's kind of the size of it. So 2:30 in the morning, I'm seeing things. I decided to play this game where I would take the dictionary and flip it open and, without looking, point to a word. And that would start the line of the song. And if it didn't go anywhere, I'd do it again. I'd flip open another page, point to another word, and I'd join them. So I did this, and it was kind of fun, man. And so it was just nonsense, total nonsense. I mean, it made I Am the Walrus look coherent. So, and I called it the Jabberwocky Blues. Years later, it's playing around with different drum beats and whatnot, programmed drum beats. And there were these sort of hip-hop-ish type beats, which were pretty cool. I said, I'm going to redo that thing. And I'll just call it the Jabberwocky Rap. And so that is the story behind the song that is the closeout song each episode of A Very Odd Caster. And that's a perfect note to say goodbye on, because we're done. And we'll see you next time, whenever that may be, on A Very Odd Caster. Ciao, ciao.
Jabberwocky type is the combat, crawling in the trenches, how they hide from the wenches of Pendlebury. Do you know what I'm talking about?